and welcome to Inspiring Voices, the podcast of the Cornwall Federations of WI. We are Avron and Tracy, and we welcome today Cathy Smith, Project Officer from the Forest for Cornwall and a member of Beaches and Cream WI, and also Pippa Stilwell, one of our WI Climate Ambassadors, also a member of Zena WI and Environment and Public Affairs Subcommittee. And I believe, Cathy, you're also on the subcommittee as well. You advise on the subcommittee, that's right, isn't it?
Yes, I've been invited along to meetings and to give updates about what projects we're doing.
And perhaps you could just tell us a little bit about how you got involved with the Forest for Cornwall.
Indeed, yes. I was born and brought up in Cornwall, in Newquay itself, and moved away. But I did get, I worked in environment organisations when I was living up in Suffolk, and also partly projects that were in Essex as well. And so by doing various projects across landscapes and about improvements to the environment and sustainability, it was really great on my return to Newquay about 4 or 5 years ago that I was able to actually get involved in a Cornish environment project, which is the Forest for Cornwall. And while I was returning to Newquay, I then got involved with the Beaches and Cream Newquay WI, which for somebody returning after a long time, it was a great way of being able to learn, get back into learning about what happens around the community, what's going on in Newquay and the areas, and just to understand what's going on. And then via work, we got involved with the WI, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment.
Yes, because I think you yourself, Pippa, got quite involved in organising some of the activities that have taken place regarding the Forest for Cornwall. Am I right in saying that?
Well, shall I just say a little bit about how we managed to team up with Forest for Cornwall at all? I was actually born and bred in St Ives, and lived in Worcestershire for a long time, and we planted 500 native trees in Worcestershire, which are still there, I'm very glad to say.
Oh, how amazing, yeah.
But because you never quite know. But I was as a WI Climate Ambassador, I was co-opted onto the Penzance Town Council Climate Emergency Subcommittee. Just as an observer, I couldn't vote, obviously, but they got various speakers in, one of whom was Alex Forrester from Forest for Cornwall, who talked about the work of Forest for Cornwall. And at the same time, Julia Havard from ENPA was looking for a suitable piece of land on which to plant 100 trees to celebrate the WI centenary. And she couldn't find anything big enough that had public access. So it seemed a good idea for us to team up with Forest Cornwall and offer WIs the opportunity of helping to maintain trees.
Yeah. And I think what happened as well, Alex and I, we obviously talked about the various plans that we could do once we were in the office, and then me being a member of a WI meant it was thought it was a little bit easier for me as to be the Forest for Cornwall liaison person with both the Cornwall Federation and any of the other local WIs that wanted a bit of support as well. So one of the main things that we've done working together is creating a scheme which is about gifting free trees to each and every WI group, those that are able to have them. And we've done that for 2 years now, and we've had real success with that, actually. We've had the first year, there were 24 WIs that were able to take up the offer of the free trees, planting over 80 trees. And the year we've just finished, so we talk in planting seasons. So planting seasons, you plant a tree in the winter when the tree is dormant. So you usually plant from end of November to early March, and that's the season before when the tree is dormant and before the leaves start budding again. So in the seasons just finished, we had 18 locations and over 50 trees.
That's amazing. What type of places have the trees been planted, Cathy, by WIs?
Oh, a right old mixture. I mean, Pippa has worked with her local WI. Remind me where your trees were planted, Pippa.
Well, they're planted at a really lovely site at a place called Ponyu, which is just around the coast from Senna. And they were planted on a piece of rough land, which Cornwall Council had to work on because there was a stream which was undermining the road. So Cornwall Council moved the stream. The farmer is, and their family are good friends, and Caroline is our treasurer and has been for many years. So they gave us permission and access to plant on this piece of land. And so now I think we've got 5 trees there, and Harry has been planting there as well. So it's
across
a good
Cornwall.
site.
Yeah, and across Cornwall, those trees have been planted. Well, it's been a real mixture. One of the things we learned is that not every WI hall has any green space, because initially we thought it would be for WI halls.
Yeah.
But the ethos of Forest for Cornwall is that trees should be planted for public benefit. Especially in urban places or wherever they can be planted. And so that public benefit, we extended it to other local, either sites that were nearby, they might be with a community group or in a playing field, or occasionally it's also been in somebody's front garden, perhaps, where the public access or the public benefit is there immediately from somebody being able to walk past a house as well.
I belong to Cavone WI, and we have got green space in the front of our building. We own it. What would be suitable, because we're quite exposed, to the elements, basically. We sort of not quite overlook the sea, but it is quite an area. I mean, I think it would be an ideal place to put some trees. How do we go about it? Can we contact you?
Yes, well, what we're going to be doing, because we're going to be offering a 3rd year of this scheme, and we'll be promoting it initially in the September edition of the County News, and also making sure that every committee knows that the offer is available again. There'll be an application form which you'll be able to do online. You tell us where you are, where you'll be planting the tree. We'll give you a short list of trees that might be suitable for planting. We, being Cornish, we know that we're very exposed to the elements often, especially, your coastal winds and things like that. So some of the trees will be particularly good for that, maybe like the white beam or oak, birch, things like that. But we have a bit of a mixture, because what we want to try and offer are trees that are both visually interesting. They might have flowers in the spring, fruit and nut in the autumn. That fruit and nut is also good for the wildlife, but also just some trees that actually have good leaf coverage, because one of the benefits of being able to have trees in your community or in your local area is that you've always got that we're trying to improve this biodiversity, we're trying to improve air quality, shade and shelter. Trees can help reduce noise. They can help in some ways with soil and preventing flooding. But also it's just great for us as humans to see trees around, to have our green spaces improved, and it does help our physical and our mental well-being.
Another benefit from the point of view of the climate ambassadors, we're always trying to start conversations about climate change and make people aware of how to mitigate the effects and what is likely to happen in the future. And it's much easier to encourage people to do things. People like to be active rather than say, stop flying or stop doing this, stop doing that. But if you can say we can make a difference by planting and maintaining trees, that's a good message to have. So there's all sorts of benefits around this project.
Yeah. Should we just briefly talk about looking after the trees as well? Because one of the things that we've been finding in Cornwall, in the country, the climate is one of them. The climate has been changing a little bit, and so we're finding that our springs are increasingly hot and dry, which is something that we Brits we're just not ready for it most of the time. anyway, we get very hot, dry weather.
Well,
And
it's
the
definitely been
trees,
an issue this year, hasn't it, really?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's really been happening. When you start looking at the data, you start noticing it's been happening over at least the last 3 or 4 years. And most of us actually will remember the COVID lockdown where we had glorious weather, March, April, May, which was great, so we can enjoy our time outside. But when you come to needing to help look after and establish trees, establishing a tree is really just helping it for the first 3 years in particular after you've planted it. And that can be anything from a small tree, a whip, we usually call them, the ones that are only usually about 30, 40 centimetres, 50 centimetres high, to the bigger trees that we do offer through the WI Free Tree Scheme, which are the ones that are called standard trees, which are usually about 1.2 metres, a metre and a half high. But anyway, you need to water them, and it has got to be regular in the dry weather. We tend to say these trees can easily take, the standard trees that we do can easily take about 30 litres of water each time you need to water them. Now remember, that can be grey water. It can be if you collect grey water from your washing up, or maybe I take a bucket into the shower. Would you know that that's one way of making sure you're collecting water? Take the bucket into the shower and you've got a bucket of water that you can put on your tree, and I find that really effective. There's lots of grey water opportunities. If there's a mixture of good weather, good weather for trees being rain as well as dry, then you might only need to do that every couple of weeks. But if it's not rainy at all, you might have to do that, and it is particularly warm, you might have to do that at least every week, and that's 30 litres every week. Maintaining, Pippa, you had some ideas as well, didn't you, about looking after trees?
Well, it's obviously very important to keep them watered. But our planting is on a piece of effectively reclaimed land, and it's been partly reclaimed by bracken. So when I went last week to water the trees, the bracken was actually chin high. So the only tree I was able to water was the one that we planted the year before last, because I could see it above the bracken. And the ground is very rough, so I just couldn't find the other trees. So the farmer is going to take the tractor and clear it, because that's too big a job for us, really. But it's, something to keep an eye on all the time. And of course, the WI also, we've had 2 trips to Penmount Crematorium, and we're planning a 3rd one in September with Alex, and we usually get a team of about 10 people going, and it's very enjoyable. But the trees are planted just in the entrance to the crematorium, so they're quite exposed, and they get a lot of wind rock, and sometimes the stakes break, and they really need attention. And I'm not saying constant attention, because they don't get constant attention, but they certainly need looking after. So I think Forest for Cornwall, Cathy, I think you asked us to commit to looking after our trees for 15 years.
Yes. So for 3 years, it's the you really must be checking them every few weeks, making sure they're watered. You can tell when there isn't enough water, because the leaves start getting dry and brittle, and often curly as well, depending on which species. So that watering is obviously essential in the first few years, but making sure that, because we provide a stake and a tie, and sometimes a mesh cage for them as well, because some locations that might be exposed to open spaces where there could even be deer or rabbits, that can be really helpful. Actually, in a playing field as well, a mesh cage is really useful, because somebody might be kicking a football around or something like that. So we provide those as well. But you need to be checking that the grass hasn't grown up within the cage too, or in that surround, just really because they're those plants are stealing what available water there is, and so you don't, just to start with, you don't particularly want that. And so yes, as you go on through that next 5, 10 and 15 years, you're wanting to check when the tree is strong enough and stable enough that you can remove the cage, that it's high enough that perhaps it's not going to be eaten quite so easily if it is going to be nibbled, but also the stakes and the ties need to be, they can't be too tight, because that can actually rub on the tree and make a mark and make them strangle a tree sometimes if they're too tight and they're not looked at. And then eventually you can release the ties, release the stakes, release them all to the environment, and let our world take care of them.
What about mulching? Do you recommend mulching with, your homemade compost or anything? Is that
can be a really good way of keeping those plants down from around the immediate surround of the new tree? Yes, indeed, yes.
So what do you think are the real benefits to WI members to getting involved in planting the trees, or getting it, if your WI hasn't already been involved in this, what would you say are the benefits to you and your community to getting involved in this? If members are out here listening to this and thinking, oh yes, we haven't done this, but I'm quite keen to suggest it to my WI.
One of the main benefits is that you're getting involved in something that's benefiting your community. It's often a good starting conversation to have with people as well, because especially when you're seen there trying to plant a tree, but also they're looking after it, you can have those conversations that Pippa mentioned about being able to think about the environment, to think about climate change and why you're doing some of these things. The list of benefits of trees is obviously quite long. I mentioned very briefly, that you're improving air quality, you're improving noise reduction, because trees can be a shield as well. We plant within Forest for Cornwall masses of hedges as well, especially on farms and land holdings, and you can feel why that would be beneficial. But one of the things I think that we're finding is that lots of people are enjoying taking some of the trees that we have at our free tree giveaways, and I'll talk about those in a moment, because that's something that we can get involved in. Because they're taking them, they're planting them with the grandchild. They're saying, you can watch this tree grow up as well. You can watch and see what happens with this tree in the next 20, 30, whatever years it might be. And you're also helping animals and birds and things like that. You're improving the look of your area, and you're improving the health of the area. So there's many benefits, really.
Thank you.
Just to say, we invited everyone who planted a tree to send in a photograph, and the number of wonderful, joyous photographs of, 10, 12 people standing round a little tiny tree, looking as if they're having a whale of a time, is indicative, I think. And it does.
I think everybody does love a tree, don't they?
Yeah. Yeah. And you're outside actually, and a lot of those photos from that we've asked WIs to send in when they've been planting their trees, you are planting in November, December, January. You are getting wet when you're doing it, but there's nearly always a smile on everybody's faces when they've been doing that.
Yeah. Oh, I think it is definitely a wonderful thing, and I think it's really great that so many WIs are getting involved in this. I think we're starting to get to the end of our time. Before we close, are there any other points that either of you wanted to make sure we covered off today?
Well, I think one of the key things that's worth talking about now is really what's happening next. What can the WIs be doing to join in with the next tree planting season and the next set of things that we're doing? I mean, it seems strange really for us at Forest for Cornwall to realise that we've been doing this now for 5 years, and for the last couple of years, I'd say one of our growing projects that we've been doing, which has been so well received across the whole of Cornwall, has been the gift of free trees. By the thousands. Basically, they're the small whip trees, the ones that are 30, 40 centimetres high. We turn up the first year we tried it, we maybe did 2 or 3 different giveaways in towns. The following year we did 14, and this coming year, actually at this stage of the year, we're recording this in July, we're proposing 10 definite places that we're going to be doing tree giveaways, and I wouldn't be surprised if one or two more crept into that list actually as we're going through that. And those locations that we're choosing, we're trying to always, of course, stick to our general mantra, which is the right tree, the right place, the right purpose. So we're making sure we're going to places that are within towns that perhaps don't have so many trees. And it's also, I mean, it's synonymous. If you're in an urban area, you're not likely to have so many trees. But there are some, I mean, the towns are great. There's some lovely parks and things like that. But it's nice to think we've got more trees happening. And so the particular scheme that I'm talking about is called the Back Garden Forest. And the idea is that people can take a tree or 2 or 3 away and plant them in their own personal gardens. But they can also be in other places if that's suitable for where they are. And those locations are going to be from top to bottom of the county: Torpoint, Callington, Bodmin, St Austell, Newquay, St Agnes, Perranporth area, Truro, Redruth, Camborne, Helston and Penzance. And so we'll be pitching up at those 10 locations with trees, and possibly 500 to 1,000 trees at each place, depending on what we've judged is going to be the right appropriate number, and stand there, and for a couple of hours we'll be giving those free trees away. Now, we have been inviting WI members from each of those towns to come and help us do that, because it's quite a big undertaking. So WI members in each of the towns will be invited to come along and volunteer to help give out the trees. But of course, WI members are also invited to come and take those trees, take them off, have one for a grandchild, have one for the garden, have one for whatever purpose is going to be the right purpose for you there.
And how will members know when those events are taking place and where they're taking place?
Well, luckily, the Cornwall Federation is going to help us with some of that promotion. So
Lovely.
We will be putting that information into the county news a little bit later. We're hoping that we'll have all the information ready to go into the October news, if not definitely the November news, county news, and the social media, but also via Forest for Cornwall promotion itself. We'll be putting posters up in towns. We'll be making sure you'll be able to pick up information from the library. Some of the giveaway locations might be libraries as well. Hopefully promotion will work and we'll get that message out.
Well, thank you very much, both of you, for your contribution. I just want to ask one thing. As we did a centenary for the WI when we were 100 years, are we planning on doing trees for 110 years at all? Do we need to find a space for it? Is that something maybe Federation could look at?
We could think about it. It's finding somewhere big enough that has public access. That's the problem.
Right.
Yeah.
And that would be a feasible thing to look at, would it?
Well, I know Julia Havard tried really hard and didn't find anything suitable, but as people become more and more aware of the benefits of planting trees, maybe other people will make land available.
Hopefully perhaps the backyard gardens and the opportunities for WIs to come and get perhaps just the one tree or a few trees, perhaps that's
that could be your 100 trees, your 110 trees.
So that's the exciting thing. And I think so if we all watch this space, look out for county news, look out for the social media, which obviously Avril you're very involved with for the Cornwall Federation, and keep an eye out for local publicity. I think that's the thing for us all to get involved with. And WIs out there, if anybody's listening and their WI wants to help you, Cathy, then let Avril or I know, and we can get you in contact with Cathy and Pippa to put your support. Although I'm sure you'll be asking for the support in county news anyway.
And also, I mean, really, just to remember, every tree helps. If it's one tree, if it's 100 trees, if it's a landowner who can plant 1,000 or 2,000 trees, it really all helps. And Forest for Cornwall is as interested as in helping one person plant one tree as it is actually to try and do any larger schemes.
And I think
what I really good to know.
what we've said today, or what Pippa's told us, is that, you know, this is all about what we can do, the positive action we can take for climate change, not worrying, not focusing on the things we mustn't be doing. This is about one thing that we can actively do, and I think that's a really lovely message to take away from this. Well, thank you ever so much. I'll pass over to Avril.
Yes, it's been really interesting, and you know, I'm more than happy to push anything that you want to give me onto social media, because that's what I do.
Will do.
And I mean, I'm sure Chai knoweth, we could always open it up when you want to give the trees away as well. Both Tracy and I are key holders, so we have access to it any given time at weekend, so it would be available. I'm sure we can put that.
Well, I'm sure Cathy and Pippa are in the process of getting everything organised. So anyhow, but thank you ever so much, both of you.
Thank you.
We'll let you go.
Thanks. It's been lovely talking to you, and yes, happy
lovely
planting.
to talk to you all.
Happy tree planting, everybody.
Yes, absolutely.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah,
bye.